Hello everyone and welcome to our new episode of the Expat Career and Lifestyle podcast. Our special guest today is Kasia Michaels, International Happiness Coach. Kasia empowers international women to take their happiness to their own hands and to finally live the life they desire. She has lived and worked in 5 different countries, starting in a new field each time. And today with Kasia, we are going to speak about where to find your daily happiness and enjoy your international life. Welcome, Kasia. I am really happy to have you here today. Please tell us more about yourself and what are you doing.
Thank you, Dominika, for this nice introduction, and it's really nice to be here. Thank you for inviting me. So as you said, I am the International Happiness Coach, and I work mostly with international women who want more meaning, fulfillment, and joy and happiness in their lives. As you mentioned, I think I am Polish. My husband is American, and we have 2 daughters, and we've just moved for the 5th time. Now we live back in Brussels, and my professional path is very versatile, and I think it's partly due to all the international moves that I've enjoyed and experienced in my life, both with my husband and even before by myself. So I studied in Warsaw, and then actually I got a scholarship to go and study in the US, and I was also a teacher in Poland, in Warsaw, and then I was also a teacher in the US. I was a French and English teacher in the 2 countries. And then when I went back to Poland, I worked briefly at a television station, and I also worked in public relations. And then when I got married, I moved to Brussels just for a few months, and then I moved to Paris for 5 years. That's where my 2 daughters were born. And then once they went to preschool, I started thinking about going back to work. And in Paris at that moment, Poles didn't have the right to work. So I said, okay, I'll stay a little bit longer with them at home. My husband was traveling a lot. So I said, we don't have any family around. I think it would be great for me to stay and be there for my kids and, be very present in their lives. And then we moved to Brussels. And in Brussels, I said, okay, now it's really for me time to find something. But after several years of being a stay-at-home mom and also being a foreigner in Brussels, I experienced something that probably a lot of your listeners experience, that it's not so easy to find a job in your former field because you're in a new country. Even if you speak the language well, you're not a native speaker. You don't know the market, you don't have the connections and everything. So after a few years of searching, I passed a competition and I entered a job at the European Commission. And then, so I worked there for a few years. And then my husband, it turned out that my husband got invited to live in Germany. And first it was a little bit scary to me because, I had my job, we liked our life in Brussels, but then I said, okay, let's welcome this new adventure. And so we moved to Germany. And back in Brussels, I actually took a year to go to a coaching school. And when we moved to Germany, I decided that it's a great opportunity for me to start my coaching practice. And that's what I did. And after 3 years, I'm back in Brussels, and I'm actually going back to my job at the European Commission because there's a coaching network that's being developed. And that's a great opportunity for me to use my coaching skills at my previous job and at the same time continue my coaching practice. It's a little bit challenging, I think, because being at a job kind of where I have to be maybe not 9 to 5, but at certain times, and then still continuing with my one-on-one clients can be challenging. But I'm looking forward to what it will bring me. And there are some aspects of being at work in an office that I'm looking forward to. So just to go back to my coaching, I usually work with one-on-one clients, but I also run live workshops, and these workshops are usually for women, and they mostly deal with happiness.
Mm-hmm. Wow, what amazing story! So you changed a lot. You traveled and you lived in many different countries, and you also, as you said, you reinvented yourself um, a lot. Every time you moved, you started something new, a new project, a new adventure. So now you are a happiness coach. I don't know, but today before this interview, I felt happy because I was going to speak with a happiness coach. So this makes made me happy. But what doesn't mean to be happy?
Mhm, mhm. So, we all kind of instinctively know what makes us happy. We all kind of know when we feel happy, what brings us happiness. It's quite individual because it depends maybe a little bit on what stage in life you are. What makes somebody happier when they are 20, it might be a little bit different from when they are in their 50s or 60s. Um, and there are some universal things, universal strategies that make us happy. And I really like the definition of the positive psychology that looks at happiness in kind of two dimensions. The first part of happiness is this kind of day-to-day feeling of joy, of satisfaction, like just feeling good on a day-to-day basis, experiencing well-being. So that's one part, and that's maybe a little bit closer to pleasure. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's this other part that is basically about meaning, about having a life, leading a life that matters, leading a life that is good, that makes sense, that has a lot of meaning, and being satisfied with that life. So having, seeing those two dimensions, I think that this really encompasses what happiness is for me.
Mm-hmm. So why did you choose to help people to find their happiness?
It kind of happened almost by accident because I think it was when I actually started working at the European Commission, and I was really a little bit overwhelmed because after being a stay-at-home mom for so many years, I was used to a different pace of life. Just life was very different for me, and then suddenly I had to you know learn a lot of new things very quickly,
Mm-hmm.
and I felt a little bit overwhelmed. And but I always, that's one part of me, that's one of my values, one of my strengths, that I love to learn, I love to grow. So even when I was a stay-at-home mom, I always read a lot, I was always interested in psychology. And at some point I stumbled upon an online program that I think it was called like Science of Happiness. I was like, wow, that sounds very interesting. And this is, I think, the first time when I realized that happiness is actually something that we can practice, that we can do something about it, that it's in our hands, that it doesn't mean that we're born either happy or not happy, or happier or less happy. That it's really something that depends on us. And since then, I've been really like talking to people, just even in private conversations. And then once I became a life coach, I was like, wow, this is something that I really want to include in my coaching. And I pretty early on, I started running those workshops. I started in Brussels. My first workshop was in Polish, and then I started running those workshops in English. And I also in Germany, I ran a meetup group where we also had a lot of meetings about happiness. So especially when I talk to women, and they can be professional international women or international women who stay at home, who with their kids, or who are kind of reinventing themselves. For a lot of us, there is this problem of how to kind of redefine our happiness when we move from one country to another, when we lose our support network, when we are away from our family. And I just think that it's so important to know that it's something up to us, that we can do something about it.
Mm-hmm. So we are in control of our happiness. So, for example, when we are moving to a new country or to a new city, we can choose if we want to be happy or not, or to increase our happiness levels, let's say?
Yes, according to positive psychology, and these people have studied so many people all over the world to see, like how much of our happiness is genetically determined. So according to their findings, 50% of our happiness is genetically determined. So it is in our genes. There are some twins, fraternal twins, that one has different genes than the other, and one is happier than the other is. Then 10% of our happiness depends on our circumstances. So it depends on how young we are, whether we're employed or not, whether we are in a relationship or not, and things like that. And then 40% of our happiness depends on our daily practice. So when we move to a new country, we can choose, we can decide, is this move going to make me miserable? Or will I choose to actually explore it? And will I choose to treat it as an adventure? Will I choose to grow with it? Or will I choose to really treat it as I'm in, at like a Siberia kind of camp,
Mm-hmm.
where I was sent and I have to suffer a lot. So I think it really, really depends. The 40%, which is a lot, depends on us.
Yeah, 40% is a lot. So we can do a lot to feel happy, to increase our happiness. Mm-hmm. So how can we create more happiness in our professional or personal life? And is it a difference like in the kind of happiness, like a professional happiness and also like a personal happiness?
These two areas are so related, so connected, that I think it's almost impossible to distinguish them. There are, it's pretty clear that when we are happier, we live longer, we are healthier, there's more chance that we will stay married or in a long-term relationship. And it also, when we're happier, it also means that we're more successful at work. Some people think that it's the other way. Some people think that, when I'm successful at work, when I make a lot of money, this will make me happier. But studies show that actually it's the other way around. So when we are happier, we feel more confident, there's more joy in our life, we feel that we have more control, and then we can be more successful professionally.
Mm-hmm. So how can we create more happiness in our life? What can we do to feel more happy?
So in general, positive psychology is something that I talk a lot about, because I really like that they've studied human beings for so many years, and they came up with those guidelines for us, and then we can take what is useful for our life, but there's this breadth of research that is done. So there are 12 strategies that actually we can, when we practice either daily or weekly, they make us happier. The first one, and it's a really big mega strategy, is expressing gratitude. And I'm sure like your listeners have seen so much talk about, so many articles, so many books about expressing gratitude, and especially when we move around, sometimes we forget about this. We are more focused on the fact that our friends are no longer with us, or that we don't have our most favorite products that we like in the supermarket. But actually, when we focus on being grateful for simple things, it makes us happier. The next one is cultivating optimism. So it's kind of teaching ourselves to think that whatever happens, it will be okay, kind of, to put it simply, that even if things don't go so well, things will improve. And like having this faith also helps us feel happier. And the third one is avoiding overthinking and social comparison. So many times we compare ourselves to others, and it doesn't work. Even if we do it positively or negatively, it has negative effects on us. And overthinking is when we focus too much on the past, when we when our internal critic, talks to us and we listen to him or her too much. This is overthinking, when we overanalyze. This doesn't bring happiness to us. What brings more happiness is just saying, okay, hello, my internal critic, thank you for letting me know, but I choose to be a little bit more optimistic, and I choose to focus on how I can cope with the challenge. And I choose to do something about it instead of kind of sitting in the room and thinking and over analyzing. The fourth one is practicing acts of kindness, basically being helpful to others, and it's just very small gestures that we can do, to people around us, to people that we know, to our family, but also to strangers. Smiling to somebody that we see in the street, helping somebody cross the road, giving a hug to our husband for maybe taking the trash out, even if he does it every night, right? Like, acknowledging it and thanking him for it. The fifth one is nurturing relationships, and this is a big one, because there are so many studies showing that actually social connections, social relationships are what makes us happiest. So having relationships, and deep relationships, not just having, the artificial small talk, but actually having deep relationships with people around us, that would really helps us feel happier and helps us feel that our life has more meaning. Developing strategies for coping is the sixth one. And that's basically looking at our challenges and how we dealt with them in our life, and learning how we can deal with challenges that might happen, because life is life. Challenges happen in our life, even if we try to plan as much as possible. So learning to use the strategies that help us is really something that can also grow our happiness. The seventh one is learning to forgive, and it can be forgiving somebody who really made us, did something wrong to us, but also learning to forgive ourselves. We often are our own worst enemy, and we kind of hold a grudge, and for something that we did in the past, and we're like, we're doing it again, and we instead, what we can do is forgive our little mistakes, and just be a little bit more gentler on ourselves, because we're just human beings. The next activity, eighth, is doing more activities that truly engage you. So basically, it's finding the flow. It's finding something that you forget about going to the bathroom, or drinking, or eating, because you're so really involved in it. And that means finding, really raising your awareness, so that you can know what activity really engages you, and how you can do more of them, and also how to sometimes change the activities that maybe are not always so much fun for them, but changing them a little bit, so that they can be a bit more engaging, and that they can be they can put us more in a flow. The next one, number 9, is savoring life's joys. And this is basically, like the proverbial stopping and smelling the flowers, smelling the roses. Just stopping when we're somewhere out and about, stopping and looking at the beautiful sky, or, noticing maybe somebody's beautiful scarf, or looking at our old pictures and remembering, how we were on this great vacation and how much fun it was. Just those little moments that, when we stop and kind of can savor, can cherish what happens, what is happening to us, or what happened to us. Number 10 is committing to your goals. And it's very important to understand that these goals have to come from inside. So they have to be intrinsic goals. They shouldn't be goals that we take because the society tells us to do, or our parents, or our partners, or or somebody else. This should really come from us, and having those goals helps us feel a little bit more in control, and again brings us more happiness. The 11th one is practicing religion and spirituality. And it's not even clear why, but maybe it's being in a community. Maybe it's believing that there's something bigger than us, but people who are more religious and spiritual are usually happier than those who are. And the last one is, and it's very basic, but at the same time so big, is taking care of our bodies. Our bodies are our best friends because they carry us through our life, and we really need to make sure that we get enough sleep, that we exercise, that we go outside, that we get enough vitamin D, that what we eat is really nurturing to us. And when we are healthy, when our bodies can serve us to do all the things that we want to, then again it increases our happiness. And so these are the 12 strategies that positive psychologists talk about. And I add a few of my own. In my workshops, I often focus on acceptance. I think that a lot of us have problems with accepting reality, and sometimes we spend a lot of time kind of fighting against it, and we spend a lot of time and energy, and this doesn't lead us anywhere. So being more accepting is also making us happier. Also choosing progress over perfection, and especially for women, I think it's so important. So many women try to do things perfectly, and when they can't, they either don't do them at all, or they spend so much time and so much energy that they are really close to burnout. And allowing yourself to make progress, but not having this ideal, because nothing is ideal, nothing is perfect in life. So that's another one for me, that's a big strategy. And then being outside, being in nature, that makes us all happy. Having a little bit of sun on us, that is something I think that is very, very important, especially in days when a lot of us work in offices, or even when we are entrepreneurs and we work from home, but sometimes we spend a lot of time at home in front of the computer, or even when we're outside, we're looking at our phones. But taking, being in nature and actually enjoying it, it is very important. I think that I forgot also to mention, and maybe that's part of savoring. Maybe that's part of doing more activities that truly engage you, is also being mindful. And this is another big part. Right now we hear so much about meditation, and meditation is great. We don't necessarily have to meditate, but at least when we start with being mindful when we do something, without being on an autopilot, that also makes us more grounded.
Thank you very much for being with us today, Kasia, and sharing all your tips, resources, and knowledge about how to create more happiness in our lives. So tell us, where can we find more information about you? And I also know that you have a fantastic free gift for our listeners.
Yes, so the simplest idea would be just to go to my website, which is kasiamichaels, one word, .com. So it's Kasiamichaels.com, and maybe you can include it in the show notes. And then I would like to invite you to my Facebook group. It's called Daily Happiness. And as a free gift, I would like to offer you a document that I created to help expat women to kind of pitch their idea, their business project to their husbands or partners. Because I know that sometimes, when our partners or husbands are breadwinners, and when our project involves a little bit of time, a little bit of money, we need to have a conversation with them, because it's not, even if it's a project for us, it's never just like a one person thing. Most of the time, when we are when we are in a relationship with somebody. So I think this document would be very helpful. There are some some exercises. There are some things to think about, some things to prepare, questions, and some, things that, do's and don't do. So, I think that can be really helpful. And I'd like to offer to your listeners a complimentary 20-minute chat with me. It's not really a session, because normally, a coaching session is a little bit longer, but it would be a chat just to kind of like figure out, where you might be stuck with your happiness, or, if you need any ideas, if you need to brainstorm any ideas, or maybe what you have a limiting belief somewhere about your happiness or about your international life. So I could help you with that. And I'm going to offer those free sessions or free chats only until the end of September, probably, because afterwards I just won't have time for them. So if you're interested, the best time would be to sign up right now. And there are links to sign up on my website if you go to kasiamichaels.com. So, and thank you very much. Thank you so much, Dominika, for inviting me. This has been my first podcast, so very exciting.
Mm-hmm.
And also thank you for all the work that you're doing in your expat woman career and this community. I think that there's a lot of women who without the help of coaches like yourself would never give themselves even permission to dream about some kind of expat career. So thank you very much.
You're welcome, and congratulations for doing your first podcast. I am waiting for more podcast with you as a happiness coach.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Kasia, very much for being with us today. Thank you for listening, and if you like this podcast, please leave us a comment and share it with your friends, and I will be back soon with another fantastic guest. Thank you very much, and goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.